Hi, it's Richard here. Just a couple of things to make you aware of. Firstly, there are some audio issues on the interview with myself and Matt Gilbert from Mantic Games. We hope that doesn't detract from what is a rather interesting and fascinating look into the world of Kickstarter and Mantic Games. On a second note, just really wanted to, because we don't do it enough, is to just thank you for listening to the show, and whether it be your first episode or whether you've been following us for some time. We really appreciate everybody who does take the time to listen, because we are aware there are a lot of podcasts out there that do what we do. We also appreciate everybody who is ever people who tweet us, who interact with us all across social media as well. So again, just from myself and from Colin, just a big thank you for doing that. And now on with the show, and bye for now. Here's some 1980s sitcom-y guitar music that I decided on. Hello, and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. It's a bit of a sad one. There's some horrible breakup news going about at the moment. You might have heard, obviously, that the Great British Bake Off is going to be leaving the BBC to go to Channel 4. And also there's a horrible situation where the wonderful Games Workshop is going to be separating itself from Final Fantasy Flight Games. So there is only one thing to do in these distraught times, which is to sit around and chat about board games. This is We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard, and this episode is going to be called No Dread or Even a Saga, Just Some Ro-Mantic Games. And it's with, I'm going to have a special guest tonight who is a gentleman by the name of Matt Gilbert. So, hello Matt, how are you?
Very good, thank you. How's things?
Good. I'm very good. I'm excited to have you on, because we've spoken about Mantic a couple of times on the podcast, and I'm just really happy that you've accepted our invitation to come on and have a chat. Now, for those who are listening to us for the first time, the reason that we do this is because there's not enough podcasts out there about board games, and there is also not enough podcasts out there about two guys having a good old chat about cardboard. So, Matt, how long have you? Yeah, tell us for those that aren't aware, Mantic Games makes board games. They've made board games like Dreadball, Dead Zone. They made the Mars Attack board game. They made recently. They've made Dungeon Saga, Dreadball 2. You're currently running a camp. You've just almost finished. Is it finished a campaign for The Walking Dead, a kind of skirmish game on that? Is that right?
Yeah. So I guess if I look back, and actually just a little bit about myself. So a year ago, I was just like you. I didn't work for Mantic. I was one of Mantic's customers. So I've been more a war gamer, but in recent years, certainly moving on a lot more into board games. Just the nature of my gaming group as we've moved on, got a bit older, taste change, etc. But I've been a Mantic customer, and now I work for them, which my wife said was inevitable. But there we go. But I think Mantic's origins, certainly in the staff, and this comes from Ronnie, the owner, who used to work and was very high up at Games Workshop. Mantic's origins are in war games, tabletop gaming, and there they've moved into kind of the hybrid games, which I'd say things like Dead Zone and The Walking Dead, and as you mentioned, Mars Attack, those kind of crossover games. Yeah. It's a war game, but it's on a board. You're with a limited space, that kind of thing. So it's kind of that kind of skirmishy feel, but you've got cards, and there's some board game mechanics creeping in, and some of the ones you mentioned. Then where you've got the Dreadball, which is obviously very much still miniatures, but it's a board game. It's it's a set. It's on a pitch.
It's kind of
it's
violent football.
Yes, exactly. And as you said, Dungeon Saga, which has obviously been hugely popular, kind of that classic dungeon crawling experience, which is much more on the board game spectrum of games. So I think so. Mantic have evolved.
So how did you get into it? I mean, how did you cut your teeth on board games? I mean, were you a Monopoly man? I mean, everybody's played Monopoly. Were you something? I mean, is this something you've just got into, or have you been board gaming since the Games Workshop type thing?
Oh yeah,
how did you?
When I was 11, I think. Which was, let me work this out, 1986. Around 86, 87, I kind of got into Fighting Fantasy, the adventure game books.
Oh yeah.
From there, I picked up.
I was born in 74 myself, Matt.
Okay.
So we're probably round about this. We're probably not too far off the same age. So.
Yeah.
We can sit and reminisce about a bit of fighting fantasy.
Yep, that's good. Always
that's
good.
Fine.
And we'll get back to that later as to something which you probably saw out of the Dungeon Saga campaign.
Yeah.
So kind of from there, and that kind of hooked me into fantasy, and fantasy has always been my first love from that. And from there, it's probably a similar story to a lot of people. Picked up White Dwarf, got into Games Workshop, picked up Warhammer. Went through the whole, the Hero Quest, Advanced Hero Quest, Space Crusade, Space Hulk, all of the, Blood Bowl, all of those kind of things. And then kind of branched out. So when I got to a little bit exploring outside of the Games Workshop world as I grew up, but once I got to university, some friends of mine from Games Workshop left and started their own gaming shop. So then we kind of branched out into other games, Battletech, Silent Death. We started playing some cuts as well around that time. I think it was Star Trek, Star Wars cards, collectible card games were coming out. We did some Dragon Dice. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so, kind of branched a lot of that kind of stuff. And I think Battletech cards as well. Then we went kind of full circle back round to Games Workshop games and stuff again, and then, as I said, in recent years, myself and the gaming group picked up a lot of board games. Some of them, some of the Fantasy Flight type stuff, because it was linked with GW, and then we discovered Mantic, started doing their bits and pieces. But I've got kids of an age now that want to. You're interested in playing games and things as well, so we've gone back to classics like Monopoly and things like that. They're getting involved.
Have you played some of the newer Monopoly versions? They're not. They kind of take the competition out of it all. They make it very, very kind of everybody wins kind of thing. There's no property tycoon that kind of wins. No.
We've got traditional only. And there's been some things we picked up on Kickstarter. So I picked up One Dance, which was, that was a good one, which everyone enjoys. And then everyone's like, we should play some more games. Okay, which is great. So I've looked out and looked on review sites and things like that. Okay, what's good for families? What's good for kids learning? So I picked up things like Ticket to Ride.
What have you found? What have you found with that? Because obviously, my kids are 12, 10, and I've got a very young one. So, how have you done with your quest into kind of getting kind of younger, more modern-y type games? Not your Monopolies and your Sorries of this world, but proper kind of what you and me would call board games. Have you managed to pick up ones yourselves that you can sit down with the kids and enjoy?
Yeah, my eldest more so. I mean, she's more inclined to do it anyway, and in fact, she's collecting a lot of models as well. So she's also interested in kind of a bit of model painting and
okay.
So, she I think she was off downtown with a couple of her friends, and she dragged them all into Games Workshop, much to the stunned bemusement of everyone in there. I think. Bought some blister packs and paints for them and marched back out again.
I don't know if the Games Workshop staff would be used to having lots of younger girls kind of running around them, getting enthusiastic about models.
I'm not sure they were, but she did it. Bless her. And she's I think in fact both of them I think want to come to work with me on the beginning of the month, because Mantic have started doing a kind of public gaming day, first Saturday of every month, and they're both going to come along to that and have some play some games and stuff like that. But,
cool.
So
are you like a cool dad then? Because
well,
you will be. I mean, if you've got folk in the class and they'll be like that. So what does your dad do? He's an engineer. What does your dad do? He's a maths teacher. What does your dad do? He works at a board game company with dungeon stuff and Dreadball and stuff, and it's like, wow.
Makes
do you have quite an extensive collection yourself of kind of board games then?
I do, and they go all the way back. I mean, I've never thrown anything away, so everything's back from when I was 11. I've still got it all. Have
you still got like Hero Quest and Space Crusade and Advanced Space Crusade? Have you?
Yeah, got all of those. In fact, I think I've got a couple of copies of Hero Quest, which I've cracked out and played with the kids, and they've enjoyed it. And into that mix, as I said, we've thrown some new things as well, which they've all enjoyed. Ticket to Ride, they both enjoy.
Have you tried Codenames yet?
We played it in work a couple of months back, and I was useless at it. But I still won though.
Yeah, my kids currently kind of love they love Codenames and everything. I mean, if we get a spare half an hour, then they want to play it. I mean, that's how much they kind of like it. I mean, we've played. I mean, looking for kind of simpler games. I mentioned on a previous podcast that I got the kids involved in playing a game of Pandemic to teach them that life is short. But we've also played games like Mice and Mystics. They really liked Mice and Mystics by Played Hat Games, which was quite. It's very visual. It's very arty. It's also very, very kind of cute because it's little mice fighting rats and other things like that. With you being in the industry, are there games that are there games that you've seen recently that you like the look of, that you would like to get to the table yourself?
Bizarrely, in the last year, since actually starting to work for Mantic, I've played the amount of gaming I've done plummeted to almost nothing at the moment. But that's partly because of the amount I've got going on in work. That's just kind of keeping everything running and organised and making sure things are on track, etc. And just the last year, it was 6 months, or actually more than that, 8 months before we all moved up to Nottingham, and I've been commuting in that time, just haven't had time to game really. So I think. But at the end of this year, everyone will be settled. We'll have moved into our house. I'll have my games room back. I can get all my stuff back out of boxes. I can fill it all up. I can have a games night again on back to Wednesday games nights and things like that. And do you keep your board games in open display on the shelf, or do you keep them hidden in a cupboard? No, they're all on open display on a shelf in my games room. I don't have any more, but I'm getting back. Is that a negotiated thing with a sale? If we're getting a house, darling, then we're having a room that's going to have all my board games in it. Oh no, there was no negotiation. Then your wife sounds like a lovely woman. she played Warhammer Quest for a year. We had I think was it
really?
I think it was Warhammer. Yes, it was Warhammer Quest. It was, every Saturday we went around. It was about a year. We played with another couple and another guy as well. So 5 of us adventuring. Yeah, she learned to play Blood Bowl as well. I think that was a while ago though when we were first going out.
Was that when you were first kind of going out?
Yeah, and I think once the novelty had worn off and the claws were in, then it was.
They're kind of our eyes met over a ripped orc torso.
Exactly.
With you being at the front of it, are there games that you've had a nosy at, you've had a look at? At the moment, there's games like Scythe, which seems to be getting a lot of attention from the press. Is there any games that you've looked at and went, oh, that's an interesting concept or anything like that, or are you just purely having to concentrate on your day-to-days?
At the moment, yeah, I'm more just kind of concentrating, getting, because I come from an IT background, not obviously any kind of gaming background or anything like that. My gaming background is as a consumer and as a customer.
Right, okay.
So it's a learning curve for me in that regard, and just ensure that what Mantic's producing and delivering is all on track, and and everything's running smoothly. I think once I got to grips with that, I'll be able to look a bit wider when I'm looking for games now. Exactly, when I'm looking for games now, I'm looking for myself and whether it's something I would want to buy for me. Are the girls going to want to play it? That kind of thing. The other guys, certainly like Ronnie Stewart, who's our studio manager. When we've got ideas for games, we'll go and look at what else is out there. They'll go and look at what else is out there. They'll go buy them, play them. What's good, what's bad. What makes what are working. What feels new, what feels fresh. How do we mix things up? So they're always looking at those kind of things.
So is it quite an open office in terms of throwing about ideas and stuff like that, or are you kind of? I mean, for people that aren't aware, you're like the COO, you're the Chief Operating Officer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you is it still, do you have the chats with Ronnie and the likes and saying, does he say, oh, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that, or are you said right, get to your desk and get this paperwork done kind of thing?
No,
Is it quite?
It's open, and anyone can come and with ideas. We've got guys in the warehouse who are interested in writing rules and things like that. Great, they want to do that. Everyone wants to get involved in playtesting. If we're writing something new, it'll either be after hours, or we have a Mantic gaming evening Tuesday, which is open to staff and stuff. So people will do all sorts, and it might not just be Mantic games. People can bring whatever they want and play. So it's very open. There's ideas always thrown around, and we're obviously there's a Stuart and Ronnie and myself a few weeks sat down and looked at the whole of the rest of this year, running into all of the end of next year, in terms of kind of release schedule, what do we want to be doing, etc. And we want to get to a point where we're looking even further out. So we're working on stuff that's 6 to 9 months, even a year out.
Is it like constantly? I mean, you must be in the situation where you obviously know what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
And you must have sat on you must have known about The Walking Dead coming on. So did you know about The Walking Dead and everybody else? You had to keep completely quiet about it? Was it that kind of situation?
Yeah, I knew they had the license before I started working here, because I was a Pathfinder, which is Mantic's kind of volunteer for go out to shops and events and things like that, and do all that kind of stuff. So and I'd been friends with Stuart and Ronnie and everyone for a long time, for yearly, and I knew that they had the license for The Walking Dead for probably 6 or 9 months before the Kickstarter, maybe even a year. Or it was, they had it for a while, and they were working on it for a while before it went to Kickstarter. So I knew about that. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff obviously that I know about now that we've sat and said, we should do this, and I've planned it in for when it's going to land, when we need to start doing stuff. So the last couple of weeks, I've taken that here's all the great things we want to do and when we want to do them by, and then I've had to reverse engineer that back through, from dispatch,
to ordering the cardboard
exactly,
and stuff like that.
Backwards from dispatching, shipping, production, tooling, manufacture, rules design, all the way backwards. And it's like, oh, hang on, we're supposed to have started that 3 weeks ago.
Exactly. We're 17 weeks behind schedule already. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. What are you doing standing there? Get on with those resin miniatures. I want to see 150 big marshmallow people.
Yep, exactly.
Before the day's gone, kind of thing. Is the kind of the... Because there'll be hopefully a lot of people listening to the podcast. Is the kind of the reality of working in the industry, is it different to the kind of the hazy dream about thinking about working in the industry kind of thing? Is there a massive difference between what you thought it was going to be like and what the reality is?
I think so. I think I knew it was going to be busy. And I knew that I was coming into everyone at Mantic are this big company with these huge projects. It's actually a small company, big projects. And there's everyone's got lots to do, and there's with obviously with tight deadlines and stuff like that. So I knew it was going to be what Ronnie was bringing me for was to try and put a lot more structure and organisation around that, so that everyone wasn't, finding out that they had tons of stuff to do at the last minute, and it was better planned.
Let me just send you your 150-page to-do list.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we know and can see months out that actually, we need to do 18 pieces of graphic layout here, and we're the person to do it. Let's book some people now, rather than the week before think, oh, hang on, there's no one available, that kind of thing. Just
asking somebody, so are you any good with Microsoft Paint or crayons?
Yeah.
Have you ever used plasticine? We can even use maybe blue tack, because we've run out of plasticine kind of thing, but no.
But,
but it must be, it sounds... It sounds like you have to have a certain kind of mindset. Is it kind of all hands on deck then when a project comes up? Because looking at the list of projects that you've done, because I'm meant to do research and homework. So there's not. You do Kickstarters. That seems to be your weapon of choice for getting kind of games to the market, yeah?
Yes,
you don't seem to have had a...
It's something that we want to swap. So, we've been very much a Kickstarter kind of driven and backed company to date, and less on the trade side. We're trying to get to a position, and we want and need to get to a position where that reverses itself. So, so trade subs the majority of the business, and Kickstarter, is the lesser of the two kind of streams.
One of the things that we have mentioned in the past, and we spoke about it, is that there's obviously the big balance between. The guys that I've had on the podcast recently, I've had the likes of Eduardo Baraf, whose entire games thing is I get my games funded, and he's just successfully funded his latest game. But if the game wasn't funded, there's no way that's getting launched. And some of the views of Kickstarter, when you see the targets that you guys have been hitting, there's only one game I think that hit maybe below the 300,000 mark, and that was, I think was it Luxo or something? I can't.
Was it Loca? Was it that one?
Loca, yes.
Yeah, and that's actually one that was one that Mantic ran on behalf of Riverhorse, Alessio's company, the tourist company. So he asked, based on the previous Kickstarters that Mantic had done and run successfully, it was it was Alessio's first foray into Kickstarter, and asked Matt to run it for him.
Because Dead Zone did it over 1 million.
Yes.
Your Mars Attacks, Dreadball 2, they've all done at least about the 500,000 mark. One of the things that obviously we discuss is is you said just now, like, we're trying to get away from the kind of the relying on Kickstarter as much and saying we're going to put a game out and let the kind of trade approach you and say, okay, we'll have 20,000 copies for our stores kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are you trying to move away from the kind of the almost like the pre-order Kickstarter model? Because it sounds like that's kind of where you're trying to go.
Well, I think what we want to do is be less reliant on that to release product. So, you know, off of the back of all of those Kickstarters to date, we've obviously done an immense amount of tooling to create models and stuff like that, and it'd be great to be able to reuse those in new ways, in new games like that. So, you know, reuse of assets, you don't have to tool again. The biggest expense, you know, especially for us, because a lot of our stuff is very miniatures heavy, is tooling costs. So, you know, tools, steel tools to have, because you've got the concepts, then you've got the sculpting, then you've got the tooling, and that's expensive, and then that tool, you know, the layout and all of that stuff, how the tool's going to get constructed, then that steel has to be cut. You know, and you could be talking tens of thousands for a set. You know, once you to that, and then of course you then have to produce it. Now, obviously, just shots of plastic tool aren't very much, but they are if you've got to do that, and you need to do it 3 times for a kit or a box, and then you send that out to 5,000 people. It suddenly starts mounting up very, very fast. A lot of what we get on Kickstarter goes into tooling, and that mounts up pretty fast.
But I suppose getting the tools together, that kind of helps with the future campaigns if you've got that tool set in place, I guess.
So I think where we are is we're starting to get enough traction in terms of a customer base and things like that we know that we can start to explore creating tools and things for plastic sets outside of Kickstarter, because we're more confident that tooling will repay itself in sales, you know, straight away. The danger when you've got a small customer base, you invest so much in the tooling, and then if it doesn't make itself back within the first month or two, you're really struggling. Which is why Kickstarter, having that money there and all that commitment from people, you know, basically you know that the tool's going to pay for itself, the product's there, it's ready, and of course, with all, you know, once you get stretch goals and everything else, the product becomes much more than it would have ever have been if you hadn't had all that money and that commitment and that investment.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. A lot of the board games that come out there, if they're not Kickstarter, it's like you're getting your final product. You don't get I guess you don't get the situation where you get a sign next to say a copy of Settlers of Catan in Waterstones or another high street store that has, guys, if we sell 1,500 of these, everybody gets an extra 5 tiles kind of thing. You don't get that in the kind of the normal kind of retail model. So Kickstarter can be it can open up it can obviously open up a much larger experience to the person that's back in the game in the first place. Obviously one of the things, and I went on a rant in about a couple of episodes ago because I backed, you know, I was involved in backing Dungeon Saga, and I got the stuff through, and, you know, everything kind of came through fine. You know, I think probably because of how, you know, where you guys were based and stuff like that as well. And it was a comedy rant. I wasn't angry. It was all very, very tongue in cheek. But the main thing was the Adventurer's Companion. Now, looking back on that, it was quite amusing when you see it. You'd flick through it and there was some misprints on it. When you reprinted it, it came in an annual and it didn't fit in the box. Who do I shout at about that? Who made that decision?
I can probably guess, and they're no longer in the company.
Because you got to understand, right? I'm one of these people that if and me and Colin are both these people that we do it like it's almost like a fire and forget kind of Kickstarter. I think a lot of people are the same. You kind of you look at a project, you think, oh, that's quite good. You back it and then you forget about it because you're not kind of physically saying, here's money, okay, I'm taking my box away today. So it can be for a different experience. But I do remember being at the club saying, okay, here's the replacement companion thing, and try to put it in the box. And I tell you, you weren't cursed much, but you were cursed a little bit. There were some issues with delivery and logistics and stuff like that, which happened, with that Kickstarter. I mean, when I was looking at the figures, it looked like the previous ones that you've done, apart from the Dead Zone one, the Dead Zone one funded really, really highly, and then there was ones between that seemed to be, still funded really, really well. I mean, most people would be delighted if they got the level of funding that you got. And then Dungeon Saga seemed to get legs like nobody's business. It seemed it was featured on the front page of Kickstarter. People were going review mad for it. People were doing videos left, right and centre. I mean, I think it ticked a lot of nostalgia boxes for people like you and me who had maybe played Hero Quest and Advanced Hero Quest. Here were little figures. There was the dwarf, there was the barbarian, there was the elf, there was the wizard. I mean, this was, it for me personally, it tweaked a little nostalgia button in my head, and I went, okay, this is kind of looking good. So it ended up funding kind of really well. In terms of, obviously you might not have been there. In terms of kind of moving forward, did it become kind of like such a big project that it grew its own arms and legs and stuff like that? I mean,
I think certainly, on the nostalgia thing, that's exactly what Ronnie pitching it for. That kind of golden era of those games as they were coming, HeroQuest, etc. That's where he was pitching it at. Something that those players of that era would pick up and play, or pick up and play and want to play with their kids as well. So kind of a great nostalgic feel to the game, but also something that kids would want to pick up, or parents and kids get into gaming, all that kind of stuff. And I think worked in that regard. I think And I think that was also, Mantic had run a number of Kickstarters at that point and knew how to run them, knew how to engage with the community and stuff. And I think that's where you saw all that traction and that stuff coming together.
Well, that was just, you couldn't move. You couldn't move for it at some point. Exactly. It was very, very well marketed.
Yeah, but I think it was almost a victim of its own success into the Kickstarter delivery. It's in retail, it's been massive and hugely popular. We've been out of stock on items waiting for stocks to come in from China, etc. There's certainly a lot of pain and lessons experienced and learnt over the delivery of it for Kickstarter. I think that's known.
Were you at the company at the time?
I wasn't. I've been clearing that mess up this year. And I think we're everyone should now have everything that they should have had originally, or missing items and stuff like that. And there was a whole raft of problems. I think it was delayed because no one realised the sheer amount of effort there would be in the amount of graphic design that was required to fulfil everything that had been promised, or even just the base game and stuff like that. The amount of and it was all during the excitement of the campaign. So many things were promised, and in the dungeon journal and stuff like that. Oh yeah, well, every time we hit another 3 backers, we'll add another mission. It's like no one actually thinks that. Well, hang on, who's going to write this at the end of the day? It's suddenly like, oh my god, I got this to write, and and all those things.
There was about 150 missions in there.
Yeah,
I mean, when you got the box through, there was about 4. There's about 4 different books.
Yeah.
And they've all got different missions on them. You've got the adventurer's kind of companion in there as well.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I guess one of the parallels that I've looked at, and one of the one of the things I've seen recently, I don't know if you've seen the kind of the Dark Souls board game.
Yeah.
And it kind of went, we've talked about it all the time, we've talked about it enough, but it funded really, really well. And when you were aware of that, were you sitting there going, guys, get the coffee on, because you think you've made this amount of money, you're going to have to catch up on your sleep now? I mean, do you, when you see something really, really funded and it's a surprise, are you kind of thinking, guys, I hope you have a kind of a better time than maybe we had? Or
no, I think if it's an established company and they've done it before, they know. They know. I think if it's a new company, it's the first one they've done and it's gone big, then that's going to hit them like a ton of bricks. Because they're going to, after a few days of realising that they've suddenly got all this money and all their wildest dreams have come true and they can make everything they want, they then realise the logistics involved in making everything they want and getting it out to people isn't quite as easy as they might have thought.
It was, I mean, the Dark Souls stretch thing, I think it got to like stretch goal number 30 or 35 or something like that, and they were just, I mean, we've always joked on previous episodes, it was like they were just picking random things off the kind of the wish list of post-it notes that they had on the board just to put something out there.
At some point you do, you obviously go into a Kickstarter and you plan, okay, here's the minimum amount we need to fund, and if we only got this much, what gets tooled, how much do we need to make that and produce it and ship it to people, and obviously pay everyone's wages and everything to do that over that elapsed period of time. And then you start working out your stretch goals, and you work out, okay, what percentage of this is acceptable for tooling and to put aside for buying the stock and all that kind of stuff. And you obviously you have a plan up to a point where you think, okay, well, it can't possibly ever go further than this, and if it does, that's when the excitement kicks in, the adrenaline, people on comments and saying, oh, you could throw this in, and everyone's like, yeah, that's a great idea, yeah, let's do that. And then
it was always like there was a massive amount of enthusiasm at the Dungeon Saga thing. It's like, well, why don't you make other different coloured figures? So have red figures, have green figures as well, do blue figures, let's have some grey figures in there. And we're like going, yeah, do it now, do this as well, have these dungeon tile type things, do all that. And when you were running in the Kickstarter campaigns that you're obviously running now, has that, well, without a shadow of a doubt, is that kind of made you look at how you're doing the future campaigns differently then?
Yes, so with every Kickstarter campaign, you learn what to do, what not to do, how to pace a campaign, if people, you have some stretch goals, but it may be that people are clamouring for the project to go in a particular direction. You say, okay, well, these two stretch goals cost us as much to do, but let's swap them over because people want to see that earlier rather than later. So if we do that, that will work, and that keeps everyone's interest up and the enthusiasm going.
Do you do like kind of the analysis behind it also? Are you the kind of the sensible head that's going around saying, actually guys, if we do it this way, this is going to cost us 25k. If we do it this way, it's only going to cost us 17. Are you kind of being the voice of sanity in a lot of this?
Well, yeah, but there's a number of us that will look at that, and certainly Stuart from a product development point of view will have a lot of that knowledge into the campaign. And there's things that people don't think about, that like you said, people say, oh, you could do some of these figures in red, and so, well, brilliant, but by the time we get to China and China say, okay, the minimum order quantity of those is 2,000, oh, we only had 6 people add that as an add-on. Oh my god. You've got all those things to consider as well, and weights of things as well. You think, you look at it and you think, well, hang on, if we wanted to send this out as one package and the whole thing is over 2 kilos, we now can't send it by Royal Mail, we have to send it by courier or whatever it is. All that doubles our shipping, all those considerations to have as well.
So you've got to plan all this and kind of making sure it's going to happen.
Yeah, so you need a sensible plan going in, and then you have to be excited, but remain sensible and be wary of how are we actually then going to do this, make it and deliver it and get it to people within that budget, etc. And we've going back and at our Kickstarters, all that Kickstarter money is almost consumed by each Kickstarter. You look at it and it's like, okay, the net, everything's done, it's all got to people. The net after everything's been paid for and everyone's been paid to do it is zero. It balances out. It's like, actually, but at the end of it, you've also got a product that can go to retail, and at that point it starts making money.
Yeah. Well, I have seen it around, and there's a local comic shop near myself, and they're stocking Dungeon Saga. It's now a regular feature on a couple of board game websites that I look at as well. They seem to have it for sale, so it's kind of grown its own kind of little set of legs. Let's put away Dungeon Saga, and one day I shall laugh at the companion's manual and the size of it. But moving forward, you've obviously there's been Dreadball 2.
Yep.
And there's also been the Walking Dead campaign. Now, can people still go ahead and can they jump in on the Walking Dead? Is that now closed, or can people still kind of go and back that?
Can't back that one anymore. We're taking pre-orders for the retail launch on our website. All the Kickstarter first wave boxes are all on. Actually, they've gone to port. Probably on a boat by now, heading to the UK. So they'll be shipping out in October, and then there will be a boat following on behind, which will be the retail stock, which is a November launch.
Did you manage to dodge? I take it you've dodged the bullet with regards to this. I think we mentioned briefly, kind of before we started recording, about the shipping company that's kind of gone bankrupt I think it's in Korea, and stopped a lot of vessels kind of dead in their tracks. Basically, they're not allowed to kind of port. I take it you've managed to kind of gracefully sidestep that.
Yes, we weren't affected by that, thankfully.
You imagine that, just like putting it on and going, guess what, guys? You'll never guess. You might need to sit down. The big boat is stuck. Let me give you the geo-positioning so you can see exactly where it's stuck.
Well, that's something we often, once the boat leaves China, and we'll do it again. We'll do an update to the Walking Dead backers. Like, it's this boat. Yeah. You can track it on this website. If it sits there not moving for several days, hang on a
minute. You feel like that. You get panicky, and then you have to say, well, go on then, Ronnie, you check the comments. I'm not checking the comments. Well, you check the comments. I don't know, you published the Kickstarter. You check the comments. Well, who's going to respond then? I don't know. Who have we got that's done a bad job this week? Who turned up late for work? They can respond to the comments. But yeah, I mean, it kind of, you get the salty people in Kickstarter now. I think people can be a bit more vocal, and they always forget the cardinal rule, which is you're backing a project. Backing it doesn't mean it's gonna actually turn up, kind of thing. Colin constantly goes on about the 3D printer he's never ever had. So
that's it. I mean, you're investing. I mean, you're investing, aren't you, in something new? And there's not many Kickstarters hit the dates that they anticipate. As a company gets more experience, they'll probably know that actually it's going to take that much longer than.
I think in all fairness, I think if you're expecting kind of these things to hit on the date when there's so many factors that are kind of against. I mean, I've had guys hit early. It's funny, I've had guys hit maybe a couple of weeks early because they've managed to avoid. There seems to be a couple of windows, like avoiding kind of like the Chinese New Year celebrations.
Absolutely, yeah. Add 3 weeks to everything that's happening in China.
And then just absolutely nothing happens, and so everybody's stuck. But yeah, I think we always say when we're talking about Kickstarter, buyer beware. You've got to take a look at the company, see what they've done before and stuff like that as well. The other thing is, do you think that with have you noticed a change in the number of kind of uptake that you're getting because of the exchange rates and things like that? Have you?
No, not really. I think America's becoming one of our bigger markets, or it actually is our biggest market now this year. So we do our Kickstarters in dollars. So I don't think we've really noticed. I mean, some people might have. I know there's been talk of Kickstarter fatigue as well, as people not wanting to. They've done so many that they kind of not another one, and not just from Mantic, but just in general.
No.
And I know we've probably lost backers over Dungeon Saga. I'm sure we have. I know that we've cleared it all up now. All the customer service issues are dealt with. The first things I did when I got in was put in a proper help desk system because the way it was all managed before was okay when the company was small and the customer base was small and the amount of issues coming in was small, but when Dungeon Saga hit, it was just it was thousands of emails that people were just drowning in. No way of tracking them or getting back to customers, and people were waiting months for replies and stuff. And we just had to deal with that. And we've got a position now where someone can come in, one person can come in, and by lunchtime they're done with all the tickets, and then get on and do something else.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool.
But I know we lost a lot of faith with people over Dungeon Saga, and we're completely aware of that. We've got a survey out at the moment, actually, asking people, what is your experience with Mantic, with Kickstarters? What do we do well? What do we do bad? Would you back another one? If not, why not? Just to either to find out what we don't know, and to just to see what yes, we acknowledge that we do well and we do stuff not so well, and we have made mistakes in the past, and here's how we're going to deal with them moving forwards. Yeah,
I think the only one that I've ever kind of narks me a bit is if the backers get stuff after it's, or at the same time as it's maybe kind of hitting retail, and that's maybe a petulant little schoolboy way of looking at things. But I think I guess if you think, well, I've put the faith in it, I'd like to get my hands in it before kind of maybe other people did. But
yeah, I mean, it's something Ronnie's always been very keen on, to make sure that Kickstarter backers get their stuff before it goes to retail. And we always try to plan that, but think sometimes
Oh no, that wasn't a go at you. That wasn't a go at you guys to say I never. I was saying it in the store, but
Yeah. I think it is something that happens. I think you see that you comment on forums and stuff all over the place. I think it's a lot of people. It's almost an expectation that as a Kickstarter backer you'll get your stuff first. But I think even if I take a step back as a customer, nothing to do with Mantic or anything else, I don't think I would have, if it had arrived at the same time as ever, was it going to retail, or even a little bit afterwards. I probably got it for half the price that people are buying it at retail, and probably got a whole load of cool stuff extra as well. So, kind of swings and roundabouts.
Do you get? I mean, do you have a fine collection of Mantic games on your shelf then?
I do quite a large collection, yes. But again, bizarrely, since I started working for Mantic being a year, I don't think I've bought.
The romance is gone.
Time. Well, no, it hasn't gone. I just haven't had time. I've had no time to do any painting, no time to do anything really.
Are you a bit of a Are you a painter of the models kind of thing?
Yes, but I think probably like most people, like in fits and starts, I'll have a period where I've got time to painting, and I've got the enthusiasm for painting, and I'll get a load done. And there'll be times where I just look at it and think, oh no, I can't do that. But I'll buy some more and add to the pile.
I'm alright painting as long as you're quite happy to have something that looks like it's like chewing gum dipped in multicoloured bits of paint. Basically, that's where I used to be really good. I actually do paint and I draw, but I'm not very good at doing models. They always end up looking like they're kind of Alice Cooper, because I end up putting too much black in the eye sockets and then try to do the eyeballs, put white on top of them, and they just look absolutely absolutely ridiculous.
I could never let anyone else paint my models for me. And but as I've got the last few years, I've got running out of time or not having time to do stuff. I've kind of relaxed that my standards on that, and I'm happy for other people to paint, even if they're just doing just the basic colours and stuff like that. It's like, well, that's the boring bit out of the way. I'll put the detail on and finish the bases off and stuff like that.
The last guy we spoke, well, the previous episode, the episode that aired just before this one, the guy was he won Gary Devereaux, his name is, he won kind of Golden Demon Awards. Mm-hmm. So he's one of these guys where you look at something and you just like go, how do you even paint that kind of thing? He's kind of like details. It's like, what have you done? If you look at the book, I've actually written a poem in it, kind of thing, and this is like a 2.5 inch high miniature or something, like, if that, it's that kind of thing. So that was quite impressive. What's next from Mantic? I mean, obviously we've talked about The Walking Dead, which I'm going to take a look at because it sounds kind of interesting. What's next for you guys going forward? I mean, obviously I don't expect you to give me. I expect you obviously to send me the Dropbox, a spreadsheet of everything you're doing for the next 18 months, if you don't mind. You just have to say yes.
Yeah, I'll just mash the keyboard a bit. And, I'll make some stuff up. Yeah.
He's doing the My Little Pony Dungeon Attack Saga.
No, I think that's Alessio. I think he's doing something. He's into his mind at the moment.
I mean, is there anything you've got coming out that you can mention?
Yeah, I mean, we've got for the Kings of War, which is our big tabletop mass battle war game. We've got Kings of War Historical, which comes out. It's at the printers at the moment, and that comes out at the end of this month. And our compendium as well, which is our first attempt at like a catalogue, but plus it's got some gaming content and stuff in it as well. And if that proves popular, we'll do that either annually or maybe every 6 months or so, and just refresh that. We've got our first half novel coming out, which we're printing. That'll be out, I think, December, so in Christmas, along with compilation of Dead Zone short stories, which has been available. That was done as part of the original Dead Zone Kickstarter, and it's been available digitally. We're having that physically printed, so that'll be a book. As part of the Dungeon Saga Kickstarter, there were 2 adventure game books. We're going back to our fighting fantasy. I, the first one of those, that's currently also being physically printed. And that will be available in December as well. So all books will get released in December.
Did you have a go of it then? Have you actually sat down and tried to play it, or is this you just not having time?
Well, I wrote it. I wrote that one.
You wrote?
Yes,
I
wrote
it.
Yeah, I wrote that one. And I've got, and I'd sketched out what the second book would be. But not having time to write it, a guy Tom Pike who's writing that one, and should see the first draft of that in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll print that one too. So hopefully that gets that nostalgia for everyone kicks back in again. That gets popular, and then that might become a long running series. So
you're a painter, you're a gamer, you're a writer. Are you a singer, Matt? Do you sing?
No, that'll be.
Is there anything you don't do?
I don't sing.
Well, there you go then. That's an exclusive from We're Not Wizards.
Matt
Gilbert, master of everything except singing.
Yes. What else got coming up? So yeah, I mean the rest of the year, kind of October onwards, is really all about King Dead, and then we've got retail waves 2, 3, and 4, which take us all out to the end of next year of that. So it's kind of every 4 months the next wave comes out. Very much like an X-Wing model of release. So there's an expansion and there's more figure boosters for each wave. We've got more stuff coming out for the war throughout the year. We've got a source book, big source book, because everyone's after more background, more fluff and stuff like that. That's going to be at the end of the year, and that will be influenced. There's a portion of that, and the world map will be influenced by a big summer campaign which we want to run next year during the summer, and the outcome of that will influence what then finally goes into that source book and what the map looks like. So that'll be quite.
So you're kind of going slightly Games Workshop-y in that you're building up like a universe around.
Yeah, well, we've got two. So we've got the fantasy one, which is set in the world of Mantica, original name there. And then there's our much bigger kind of the Warpath universe, which is where Dead Zone's set. And it's where the Warpath game and Firefight will all be set. Dungeon Saga is set in the fantasy, the Mantica world. The adventure game books are as well. And what we're trying to do as well is have characters and events and storylines and threads in each universe tie into the games. So in Dungeon Saga, some of those characters appear in one of the Kings of War books. Some of the events from that and Dungeon Saga are mentioned in my game book. So just try that kind of world building stuff. And for probably the big Kickstarter that we're about to do, and for delivery next year, will be what everyone's calling Dungeon Saga in Space, which is...
What? No, hold the phone. Let's see Dungeon Saga in Space.
Which is going to be Star Saga.
Really? And when's that coming out?
That will be this month. Kickstarter will start.
Really?
And we think this is going to be... We're very excited for it. We've been playtesting it, and we've been kind of teasing it out there.
My little ears have definitely pricked up. Because I'll be checking it. As we will check, I guess the proof of the pudding with the Dungeon Saga is to see what people make of Star Saga, and what the backing levels are going to be.
And we've taken. I think one of we're going to tackle it in a couple of ways. We're going to say, these are the things we know we got wrong with Dungeon Saga. These are the reasons that Dungeon Saga were great. That everyone thinks it's great. Everyone's out there playing it. It's been a massive success at retail, etc., etc. We're going to do that again. We're laying on top. Here's how we tweaked the rules, made them better. How they now fit in and more into in the sci-fi bit. Here's what we are and aren't doing. So we'll make it much clearer. We weren't very clear with what the Adventurer's Companion wasn't, and it became, through the excitement of the campaign and everything else, it became something that wasn't possible for the rules to support, really. So I think a lot of people are using it, and a lot of people are having fun with it. A lot of people equally found it kind of unsatisfactory and didn't quite match their expectations. So we're going to be very clear up front what we are and what we aren't doing, and what the game
stringent
is.
On
We've built in things like solo play and cooperative play into the core rules, so it works, and the same set of cards works whether there's an Overlord player or no Overlord player. It's the same deck of cards. It works in all exactly the same way. It's a set of mercenaries, and the way we're working is very narrative based, much more RPG-like or light than even Dungeon Saga. Much more. So there's a whole narrative campaign. You're reading out what's happening. Lots more puzzle in the rooms. One of the things with Dungeon Saga was that most games ended with the timeout on the cards. We've got rid of that. It's a lot more story driven. There's puzzles to solve. You have to do things in certain orders, but you won't know that as you go through. You explore and you suddenly figure that out. And that's driven all the way through. One of the things we wanted to do is give people a choice in the characters they play. So, what we might do is give you 6 characters, 6 mercenaries.
You were kind of dictated.
Yes, and you can take any 4. So we'll balance the games, so you can tailor your 4s that you're taking in to complete their mission to your playing style or whatever it was. But actually, the game might play different. So every time you play the game, it's going to play in a different way. There's a lot of backstory written around it as well. So we want to be narrative, evocative feeling to the game, and then obviously in terms of stretch goals and things like that, we'll look at expansions and where do they go next, and maybe going into different, doing an Asterian one or a Forge file as well. So
are you going to be doing a box in the shape of a rocket ship?
We're not, no.
Are you ever going to do another box in the shape of a book or an inanimate object, or has that been put to one side?
For Dungeon Saga, we discussed whether the book box was too complicated to continue to make, made it hard for us to produce elsewhere, in the factory and stuff like that. But I think we found other suppliers for that, so we'll continue. Anything Dungeon Saga related will probably continue in a book box because it continues the theme. I think
Star Saga will not come in the shape of a big star.
It won't be in a big star. No, we're not looking at a box. What we're probably looking at with Star Saga is probably a box. Probably be a square box, but we'll probably paint it. In terms of the graphic, the arts on it will look like something 3D. So it'll look like look like a box. You think, oh, hang on, oh no, it's not. It's not that shape. It is. So that's Ronnie's idea. He's seen some boxes like it, and he's like, oh yeah, I want to do something like that.
Okay. So he wants that now. He wants it, and you've now got to go back and cost it for him.
Or to deliver it, basically. Yeah. So I want one of these. Yeah, and then 8 months later.
He's getting me one of these. It's like,
and 8 months later,
Ronnie,
where is it?
This isn't just a donut or something like that, mate. I can't just go down to Tesco's and get it for you. This is going to take time, and you've got to cost it up for him, basically. This is all good. Thank you for this. One of the things we do on the show is we do shout-outs. And obviously, as we say to everybody else, I'm not going to make you sit here and listen while I rattle off a list of people folks should go and pay attention to. But if people are wanting to catch up with what Mantic do, because normally I give people the opportunity to say, oh yeah, here's my Twitter account. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't blame if you didn't want to kind of give out anyway, because we've kind of communicated through email, and I don't mean that in a kind of thingy way. But if people want to see what Mantic is going to be up to in the next couple of months, how would they? What's the best way to kind of go and get your Mantic fix?
I'll jump onto the website manticgames.com, sign up for the newsletter. Mm-hmm. So we get a newsletter will go out at least every Friday. Sometimes more often. We've got a new guy who's just joined us, who's doing all our social media and stuff like that, and he's putting he's kind of doing a weekly roundup video that's goes on straight onto Facebook every week, and he's dropping videos and his content every day really, and he's picked up on Twitter and Instagram and everything else, so he's all over our social media. So if you just search for Mantic Games on Facebook, you'll find a ton of stuff on there as well.
You'll find it that way. Good.
And actually, it's Rob Berman. I don't know if you know the name. He did the Tabletop magazine.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. It used to be editor of the Tabletop mag.
We poached him.
Did you knock him?
Yeah, I hired him over the summer. So he's now effectively part of our marketing social media team.
It's that's where he went, is it? Because I'm aware of who his replacement is. So who is also a man by the name of Matt.
Yeah.
So there you go. But I'm sure you're probably still speaking to them anyway about chatting about what you guys are going to be up to anyway. This has been. I hope you've had a bit of fun, because I've certainly had a lot of fun. It's been interesting. Certainly been interesting for me.
It's been good fun. I may have rambled, but it's been good.
No. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, if there's anybody that can be accused of rambling, it's my good self. That's how we go. So yeah, I mean, as Matt said, if you want to get yourself onto the Googles and search for Mantic Games, and you'll be able to pick them up on your Instagrams and your Twitters and your Facebooks of this world. If you want to check out what we're doing, then you can follow us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/We're Not Wizards. We are also on Twitter. You can get us an email which is magic@wearenotwizards.com or .co.uk. You can find us in all the usual podcast haunts, your Stitcher, your Acast, and we're also on iTunes. If you like what you hear, please drop us a little rate and a review and a subscribe, and that would be lovely. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Matt. I've really have kind of enjoyed having you on.
Thank you. It's been good.
I think the one thing to leave... I've really enjoyed speaking to you. I think the one thing to remember is that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Matt?
We are.
We are definitely not wizards. So, well, maybe. It depends what happens when I turn over the next page for the scenario. I might have to be a wizard in the next game of Dungeon Saga. But until then, it's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from Matt.
Goodbye.
Bye.